Hey beauty lovers and fellow entrepreneurs, I'm Yegi, the owner and founder of Yegi Beauty. Within 5 years of being my own boss, I was able to grow Yegi Beauty into a multi-million-dollar company. This podcast is where I share what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur in the beauty industry. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Yegi Project. Today we have a pleasure of having Jessica on our podcast, and I'm so excited to connect with her and pick her brain about what she does and how she helps businesses scale up to their revenue goals and pretty much go to the next level. Let me introduce Jessica and let her tell us a little bit more about her and what she does.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm Jessica, and what I do in a nutshell is helping women who are entrepreneurs scale to their next level, just like you said. And I really do that by leveraging systems and operations, which can sound kind of boring, but I try and make them fun by having a fun team and great energy. So I really work with businesses on why it's important to standardize a process, why it's important to document a process, because if everything lives in your head, you never get to take a holiday. And to me, all business owners need a holiday.
I definitely agree on that. I need to get everything out because when there's too much up in here, I do not function well. I start getting all over the place.
Exactly.
Well, I'm so excited to pick your brain and hopefully learn something from you and have our audience learn a lot of good tips and tricks as they're running and growing their businesses. Just so I also get to know you, I'm very interested to find out, how did you get started in your line of business? And what's your story?
Yeah. How long do we have? No. How did I get started in this? I actually started as a health coach back in 2016, 2017. And I left my job at a bank. And I was, at that time, an assistant branch manager, and we had our first baby, and I was spending an hour and a half commuting, and it just felt like that was not the life I wanted for myself. You know, when you think about what you're going to be when you grow up, I didn't think I'm going to be driving for an hour and a half every day. So it just, something felt really misaligned, and I tried to think of the things that I really enjoyed about the job that I had and previous jobs I had had. And the kind of common thread was that I loved supporting and nurturing talent. I loved seeing people learn and grow and achieve their goals. That was something that has always felt good to me. So health coaching was just making like its big debut at that time. And I thought, oh, I could do that. And so I did. Fun. Right? That sounds fun. And so I started doing that. I took a course, and throughout that course, they talked about like online marketing and how to have an online business, because that's essentially what I was starting unbeknownst to me at the time. And through that process of building an online health coaching business, it occurred to me that what I really loved was building the business. I didn't actually love health coaching. I didn't love talking to people about their health goals and that they wanted to lose another 10 pounds or whatever. Like, I loved building
the process of it and building it.
Yes, I love the process. And so over, however many years that is now, 5 years, I started helping other coaches. So I'd be in like the Facebook groups with the other coaches, and people would say something like, does anyone know how to make this automation so that like, I want it when they reply to an email, this happens, or like, does anyone know how to make it like when they send me their email that like the following things just happen automatically because I'm doing this all manually? And I'd be like, oh yeah, you just go here and you click there and you do this thing. And a friend of mine who was in that business at the time, she's like, Jessica, can I just pay you to do this? Because I don't want to do it. And I was like, oh yeah, girl, you can pay me.
And that was giving you the answers anyways.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what spawned it. I was like, oh, this is like a skill that people are missing when they start a business. And so I started off really like doing a lot of tech background, like automating and systems, like tech stuff. And through that, I realized like, okay, I actually have a lot of knowledge in coaching. I have a lot of knowledge in operations from my life in banking. And so I just kind of merged all of those, and kind of from that came this operations management role, which has now turned into an agency, and it's really what I'm passionate about. And
Wow.
I was reflecting on this. Someone asked me a question last week about kind of like, I can't remember what it was. It wasn't about vision, but something occurred to me that I was like, through all the businesses that I've started, and I've started a few businesses and I've had a few different jobs, the theme, the thread has always been like, I want women to be successful. I want women to get where they want to go and not be like held back or hindered.
Isn't that crazy when you really think about it? Everything aligns and it just starts making sense when you kind of look back. Looking forward is really difficult to connect those patterns, but when you look back, you're like, oh, I see a pattern and I see kind of where life has been kind of preparing me to go.
Yes. And that's why like now I serve exclusively women in business. That's what I want. I want to create more women who are millionaires. That's what I want. That's the vision of my agency. And that's what I get passionate about. Like, I'm getting like fired up. I can feel it. I'm like, more women with money.
I feel it. I love it. Well, my goals align with yours pretty closely. So I'm always excited to meet like-minded individuals who are really out there, like doing business, but also having a mission to almost serve others as well. Because with, again, it's a lot of responsibility, but it is very rewarding to do that. So I admire you for taking that responsibility, because it is a lot of work and going out there and doing it and building an agency. How big is your team now?
Right now, I have a team of 5. I have 1 operations assistant, and then I have 4 operations managers that can take on clients that kind of align and match and
wow, I love that.
All those things. So they're not employees, they're contractors, which I actually love because I want them to also build the businesses they want. So kind of trickles down.
I love that. Yeah, it's more like working as a team and helping each other out. How was building that team? What were your challenges like with finding the right people? Because I know being a small business owner, the hardest part is trusting your baby, your business with other people, or figuring out, who am I going to get that will be good enough, to take care of my baby.
Yes. Oh, that's such a good question. And honestly, I'm still working on that.
I think we all always do.
Yes. I will say that my operations assistant, shout out to Cassandra, is amazing. And I don't actually know how I found her. I think I had posted in a VA group that I was looking for a VA, and they had to have these skills and these attributes and and she was one of the people I interviewed. But then in talking with her and hearing like what she wants to build for herself, and seeing her work ethic and how she shows up with my clients and how she supports me. We had a conversation recently, and I said to her, I think it makes sense for you to be my operations assistant, so that you're learning the business and you're managing the team and the clients and the onboarding, and like you understand this business at a level that no one else understands it. And that's when you found the person that you can trust with your baby, right? That they're like, they get it. And so she's for sure someone that has kind of come into my life. Like the universe was like, you need her. And I was like, thank you, universe. And then the challenge with building the team would be adding on the operations managers, because I work with clients that are very aligned with universal laws. I love working with clients that understand the concept of like bringing the future into the present and like trusting that everything already exists. It's already there. It's ready. It's waiting for you. You just have to like bring it into the present. And so finding...
Can you talk about that a little bit more? Because we do talk about that on some of our podcast episodes, and I feel like the more I learn about it too, the more I believe it as well. But why? Why do you work with those type of people, and what are your main, what are the main things you've learned that has really guided you to be successful?
Yeah, the big thing that has guided me to be successful, and why I really love working with clients that have that kind of way of thinking, is because there are no limits. Like once you realize that there are the limits that exist, you've put on yourself. Anything that you think, oh, I can't do that, that's literally just a thought. It's not true. There's no evidence of that other than like the voice in your head questioning you.
And if we limit ourselves, then there's no way we're going to be able to do it because we don't think we can.
Yes, exactly. And like even with this agency, I came up against some different like judgments that I had for myself and that others had when I was seeking advice and support on how to do it, because I'm doing it in a different way. What a lot of people do for like VA agencies and operations management agencies, they're kind of built in the same way where someone's doing the work. It's just like me and my clients. And then you get so busy and you're starting to get burnt out and you have a wait list. So then you're like, oh, I'll bring in someone to help. And so you create your agency out of like necessity because you're going to die because there's just not enough of you to go around. And I thought like, I don't want to do that. So I actually started building my agency from like day one. I brought in Cassandra, my VA, like before I really needed her, because I don't ever want to get to a point where I'm burnt out and I'm like, I need someone else because this is too hard and it's too much. It's too overwhelming. And so I was like, I'm just going to start building an agency like from
Well, how did you justify the cost of that? Now, as you're building it, it's easy to see, okay, this was a great decision. I built the team so then I could grow my business and earn money. But I know a lot of new businesses or small business owners, as they're getting started, you're tight on funds. So, what's your mentality since we talked about
where's the money going to come from, right? Where is the money coming from, Jessica? And I say, well... one of my mentors in learning kind of more about universal laws, Bob Proctor, he says he has this story about like the Maharaji where he's going to go on this incidental tour when he's like bringing his message to the world or whatever. And this story is like, they're like, this is going to cost a lot of money. Like, what are you going to do? And where's the money going to come from? And he says, wherever it is right now, like the money's going to come. It already exists for you. But it's like, and this is something I actually work with my clients when we start talking about goals and revenue goals. And it's like, okay, you want to double your revenue. Great. Love that for you. And then it's like, but you won't actually allow that to happen because you don't have the team. So you subconsciously are putting up blocks. Like if 10 new clients came to you tomorrow, would you be like, great, come on in? Or would you be like, whoa, I can't handle this. I need to onboard a team. I need to develop this process. So for me, having someone there already opened the door to more clients coming in because I wasn't putting a block up about it.
I love that. I kind of believe that too. And for me, honestly, and I'm still kind of testing that out for me too, I got a bigger office space knowing that I'm going to expand and hopefully get more employees and really expand my office team like in-house. And I'm still waiting for that. I'm still being patient with the universal law, as you call it, or, with myself too, as I build my team up.
COVID, you know what, though?
In on it.
I heard what you just said, that you're hoping and you're waiting. And if you truly believe that growth is going to happen, you're not hoping, you're knowing, right? I see. And it's like those little changes of like, I got this bigger office space because I know I'm going to need it. I know that those people are coming. It's even
the words I use, because deep inside, I do know it, but see, I didn't even catch myself. I said, hoping, I don't know if it's part of being modest or trying to, but it's really amazing that you pointed that out, because I didn't realize I said that, because if I really think about it, I know, I'll get there, but maybe I'm not that sure if my words are not expressing how I feel. That's kind of cool and crazy to think about.
Yeah, and that's like, to me, that's the power of working with universal laws and working with clients that are working. Like, you don't have to get all of it. Like, there's a lot. I don't get it all. I'm not an expert. Right? But like, I love being able to say to a client, like, did you catch that you just said that? And then they're like, oh, maybe I am blocking this from happening. Like, maybe I am nervous. And then it becomes a conversation, right? About, okay, what do you need to feel more secure about what you're doing? What do you like? Do we need to onboard someone right away? Maybe we make the job description. Maybe we start posting it. Like, let's start making it real so that you're not questioning if it's real.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Thank you for catching that. I think that this is a great life example. I usually like to open actually with the icebreaker, but we just jumped right in and I love it. But my question to you, and I think it's related, is what's the best advice you've ever been given and why?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea.
The first thing that comes to your head.
The best advice I've ever been given. Holy smokes, that's a big question. You know what? I think the best advice I've ever been given, and it's kind of like it is and it isn't, is my parents, I grew up with a lot of like beggars can't be choosers. And like, you know, take what you can get and beggars can't be choosers. And it's some of the best advice I've been given because it also has led me to go, I can work with what I have. I can work with what I have and I can make it happen. And so I've shifted it. Like, I don't love beggars can't be choosers because I'm like, yes, you can. You can choose whatever you want. But it did help me see how I can do a lot with what I have right now.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that, resourcefulness. And it goes back to, you know, people who are just starting out going like, I don't have the money and like, how am I going to pay these people and how am I going to do this? Those are all just beliefs that you have. Like if you stop and change the question to like, what makes this possible? What can I do? Then it just opens up a whole different way. There's always some
options. Exactly. I do believe that. If you just shift your way of thinking, you can see it. It's almost like seeing the cup halfway empty or halfway full.
Yeah.
All right, so here's another fun question. So if somebody was to follow you around in a day, what does a day in your life look like? So you're doing your business, you love what you're doing. It sounds like you also have a family. So what does your day look like and how fulfilled do you feel?
Yeah, my days change all the time. So my wife works shift work. So in a perfect day, she gets up with the kids and takes them to daycare and to school, and I don't have to do anything with my kids in the morning. And I start my day at like 6 a.m. I come downstairs. This is my home office. I come downstairs and I just start working right at 6. Like I don't shower. I don't do anything. I'm like in my pajamas because the first 2 hours of the day for me are so productive. I just like can get into a flow and I just
rested.
Yeah, I just like crush the day. I like get so much done in those first 2 or 3 hours compared to the whole rest of the day. So like that's
I
perfect.
Believe it.
Yeah, I like come down, I do that. I do an hour of like study and mindset work every morning, usually around 8 a.m. for myself. And I find that like I do some journaling, I do some visualization, I study some different, I have a stack of books beside me. Like I study like power of awareness and I read some like work type books like Profit First and like things that are work, but I don't read them, I study them. So I'll like pick a section and just really dive into like, what does this really mean? And that really fires me up for the rest of the day.
Honestly, I love that so much, and I recently started doing that again too. I had kind of stopped for many years. I feel like I got to a place where I really was loving everything, and then having kids kind of threw me off balance to find like a new balance. So recently I have gotten back into doing more mind work as well to kind of find my new balance still. I think it's so important to remind ourselves that look, even if your mindset is where it needs to be, it can always be tuned and I guess like worked on and then kept fresh. So I love that you do that daily. I don't do that daily yet, but that sounds like such a good routine in the morning. You know, get what you need to get done, then get to like do something for yourself almost, but that's your mind work to keep yourself like on it and fresh. So I love that.
Yeah, okay, I really find that it helps like, so because I like I'm so good in the morning with my work, then I like do this mindset. It's almost like a reset, and then I'm like,
gives you
then
energy, huh?
Yeah, then I come at the rest of the day with a different frame of mind because I'm picking up whatever I was just studying, and then I'm thinking about that while I'm working. But I try to limit my client meetings to only be on Mondays. So unless it's a Monday, Mondays are like video meetings all day.
Mondays are the day you put your face together and get out of pajamas.
Yeah. I'll like put on a really nice sweater so that people think I'm not in pajamas. And then
Same.
I'm like, you know what? I said to someone once, I'm like, do you want me to spend time doing my hair and makeup, or do you want me to spend time doing work? Because there's only a certain number of hours in the day. So exactly. I try and batch the client meetings on certain days. And then if it's not a Monday, I'm doing, usually checking in with like my ops manager to see what projects need focus, where are things at, where are status updates at. So it's lots of emailing, typing, and spreadsheets, and like, it's not very glamorous. And then I usually try. Yeah, but I love it, but like, it's not much to look at. If you were watching me, I'm just like hunched over typing. And then I try and wrap up my day usually between noon and 2, because I don't like working past then. And then I have time.
You can have a work day that is done at between 12 to 2. I think you have mastered life. You found your balance.
But it's like, I started my work day at 6, right? So like, sometimes my wife gives me a hard time. She's like, what like, you were in the hot tub today? Like, when did you do work? I'm like, I started work at 6 a.m. I've been working.
Hey, you can work smarter and not harder. And if you found what works for you, that's what I love. I love talking to people who have kind of gone out of the norm and are doing what works for them, because literally we do have more options and we can build the life that we want to build, how we want to have it. We just have to figure out the how, so I love seeing real life examples of people like you that have accomplished that,
Right. And like, most days I've accomplished it, but there's days, right? I have 2 kids I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. And there's definitely days when my wife can't take them in the morning. And so then I'm on kids until 7:30, and then that throws off my day. And then I feel like I lose track of it. But I try and keep the same essential flow of the day where I just sit and work for a couple hours. I do some mindset. I restart work. I check in with my team. I check in with my clients. I try to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, block time off for checking my emails. I try not to be in and out of my email inbox, because otherwise I find it really distracting. So I try to just block time. Yeah.
Okay, well, I love that. Thank you for sharing your best practices like on your day-to-day. I think it's gold, to kind of like see what other successful people are doing, to maybe see if that would work for you, or at least take bits and pieces of somebody else's day-to-day and see if it's a good fit. So thank you for sharing that.
You know what, I do want to add one thing on kind of, if you're starting out and you're trying to think like, what will work for me for planning my day? I did my Kolbe A index, which is kind of like a personality test, but it's not. It's more like your preferred way of doing work.
Oh,
and
I didn't even know that was good.
Yeah, and one of my clients does Kolbe A. That's how I learned about it. And I was so intrigued because unconsciously I set up my day to best align with my preferred way of working, like based on this
like your natural way, so you're not almost fighting with yourself.
Yes. And I found, so now when I onboard a new client in that discovery call, if I hear things that I'm like, oh, you don't know what your best way of work is, I build in a Kolbe A index assessment into the proposal so that they can learn about themselves, because it's so eye-opening when you're like, oh, I need to stop doing that type of work in the morning. I need to start my day with this type of work. And it like rearranges how you do things so that the stuff I
love so much that you said that, because recently I did another podcast and it kind of triggered that exact question is like, do we really have to do things in a certain way if it's not working for us? Do we need to force ourselves to meditate in the morning, for example? Or do we need to kind of listen and see what works for us? But I'm so happy you gave like a solid tool for people to reference and like try to get some sort of an idea of what might, you know, be their own style. So thank you for sharing that too. Let's get back to what you do and all your knowledge. I want to pick your brain a little bit about that. So I think in one of your programs, you work with businesses on how to scale and set goals for like a X amount of financial goals. So if I want my sales to be, I don't know, 100,000 for the next 3 months or whatever it is, how can you tell us more about that process and what our listeners might benefit from?
Yeah, so what I actually do, every time I say this, I say it the same way. It's a really fun game. It's a spreadsheet. So I do what I call the money game with my clients when it's a revenue-based goal. Well, we do it whether it's a revenue-based goal or not. I do it all the time. Anyways, the money game, what you do is you pick the revenue goal that you have for yourself, $100,000, that's our goal.
Do we have to be realistic?
Depends what your idea of realistic is. Right? Like I have a client, when we first started working together, she said to me, we just started working together in December, and she said, I want to 8x my business in 2023. She's like, every quarter I want to double what I did last year. Like, so she's like, kind of like snowball effect is what she's going for. And so I'm like, great, I love this idea. So we put in her, I'm going to use her goal because it's like big, and I think it kind of hits home for people. So that would mean her annual revenue goal would be $800,000. So like the year before she was at 100,000, she wants to go to 8. And so what you do when you think of that number, that's like like, do I need to do 8 times the business? Like, can I do that? And then that's when the doubt creeps in, like, I can't do that. Where am I going to get 8 times the people, 8 times the expenses? Like, it just starts to feel really big. So we put the money into the spreadsheet, and then we start looking at what would need to happen to get that number. So you put in like the products and services that you offer. Are they like a one-time purchase? Are they monthly? Like so all the spreadsheet calculates all of that for you, and you just start playing with the numbers. Like, okay, well, as of right now, this is what I charge. You put that in, and it gives you like, okay, if you did this, you would get to $200,000. If you did it this way, you'd get to $600,000. And what people will start to find is they cannot get to that goal doing what they're doing today. So then we start to look at this. More creative. Yeah. So then this is where I set 6 types of goals with my clients. So the first one is the income goal. That's your revenue goal. But the next one is the impact. Like, why are you doing this? Why do you care? How many people do you like? What impact do you want to have? Is it like, I want to help like 300 women realize XYZ? Is it like, what is it? Because there's something. It's not about money. People do not start businesses thinking like, I'm going to be a millionaire. They start businesses because they have an idea that they're passionate about. So like, what is that? And we start building a goal around that. And then the third goal is the product or the service. So what the money game often shows us is we need a new offer. We need to tweak the offer. So then that becomes part of the goal. Do we create a new product? Do we create a new service? Maybe you were doing one-on-one services. Now you're going to find a way to do training or group mentoring or something like that. So it becomes a service or a product goal, something new that we're going to create. The fourth goal is time. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with my day. Like, how many hours do you want to work? Do you want to take vacation? Like, I have one client who said their goal is that they want to take a week off every single quarter. So that's built into the goals. How are we going to make that happen? It's not just something you say, oh, I wish I could take a week off every quarter. Yes, it becomes an actual goal. Yeah. Wow, and then the last goal is the system. And that's where my team really comes in, is like, what needs to be organized, optimized, documented to make it easier? Because at the end of the day, my team, what we do is we say, how can this be easier? How can we make this easier? We're not here to make it harder. We're here to make it easier. So Is there
Like
something that
finding
you're doing
systems
manually?
for the business, as far as finding systems for the business, like the operation, the flow, and all that stuff. Okay.
Yes. Is there a different platform that you could use that would make this easier? Is it simply that like your team doesn't have a like consistent process? Does it change every week? Is it they're confused? Like, right? And sometimes we don't see that as business owners
Yeah.
until someone else comes in and looks and they're like, you know, you did that. You've told me 3 different ways you accomplish the same thing. Like, we need to pick one, and then we need to train everyone to do it the same way.
Yeah, I love that. You know, even in our personal life, sometimes we don't see what we're doing wrong or different. It takes an outside person's perspective to kind of point things out. So I think that's super important in business as well.
Yeah.
So I love that you guys do that. So it's not
Yeah,
only
I
the
call
goal
it-
setting, it's actually the operations, because, you know, being a small business owner, a lot of times you may not have every single skill that it takes to run a successful business. And sometimes it's really hard and time consuming and costly to build those skills. So if there is, let's say for me, if I know my operational skills are not the strongest, maybe I'm a leader, but I have different skills that are super strong, but I know my operational skills can use help. It's great to know that I can hire a third party coaching to, you know, help me get there instead of me having to learn it all on my own, or maybe even hire a whole new employee, because that could be more costly, for example. So
Yeah.
I love that you guys exist.
Yeah, well, and what I find is oftentimes, like, I've had a client where I came in and they were like about 300,000 a year is what they were making when I came in, and there was like no documentation of any processes. It was like, do you have this? Well, yeah, like it's in my like email. Like nothing was like in a centralized location, and I've always believed this, and that kind of reinforced for me that as a business owner, you can make a lot happen with very little. And you might not be good at operations and you might not be good at marketing, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a successful business. You will find a way if that's what you want. But where we come in is when it's time to grow, when it's time to scale, and you have this moment of like, this is gonna break. Like, I've built this with like bubble gum and tape, and now I need someone to come and like help me make it like solid. That's when we really shine in helping our clients, is like streamlining and making the foundation really, really secure.
I love that. So you did say you work with a specific group of people who have the mindset there, and I could see how the mindset could really get in the way. That's why on my podcast, honestly, I don't only focus on entrepreneurs of literally like strategy. This is what you can do to be successful. It's a lot of mindset stuff, a lot of who you need to become or things you need to work on for personal development to be successful. So I totally align with you with that. But do you refuse clients who are not there, or you guys help people to get there mentally?
Yeah,
you're like, oh no, you're not thinking right. I
can't deal with this. No, definitely not. That's not a criteria to work with us at all. It's kind of like I love when I encounter those people. That's more what that's about.
Much easier.
Yeah. Well, it's not even that it's easier to work with. It's like, it gets really exciting. Like when you can harness that mindset, to me, that's when life gets exciting, because like all the doors just open and you're like, oh my God, like there are infinite possibilities in front of me. So like, it's just fun to work from that kind of point of view. We really like kind of our criteria for clients is a proven business model. You have a proven business model. You can sell it. People want it. They're buying it. And now you need help. You're like, oh, this took off faster than I thought it was going to, or I should have got that VA 6 months ago and I didn't, and now I'm in the weeds. That's when we really come in and help, is to kind of clean it up, to help get it sorted so that you can keep going, growing, scaling, and you're not like, oh, I have to reply to this email, and like, where'd my note go on that Post-it note? It fell on the floor, like, right? That's where we come in.
All right, so here's another deep question. So I love asking entrepreneurs who are figuring out life and balance and all that good stuff, because I think sometimes we don't talk about it enough. So what does a fulfilled, happy life look like for you? What does that mean for you?
Yeah, I love this question because it really is like something you have to really think about. And I think at the end of the day, happy and fulfilled for me is really like doing what I want when I want and truly believing that the future that I am envisioning already exists, and each day I'm bringing it closer and closer. Like when I live a day where all day long I just feel like, oh, I'm bringing my like future self closer and closer and closer, and I just everything just feels totally aligned. That's when I'm like, oh yes, I've made it. I need to replicate this tomorrow.
I love it. Okay, so here's a challenging question that I think it'd be hard for me to answer, but so you have the vision, you know where you're going, you're living in the future, and you're positive, all that good stuff, and something doesn't go your way or something doesn't go as you plan, right? It does happen all the time.
All the time.
How do you deal with that situation? Because that is when, as we talked about, a lot of people start to doubt themselves. They start to, get discouraged. So how do you deal with a situation that presents itself that you're like, this wasn't in my future?
Yeah. Oh man, that's such a good question. So I'm going to give this some context. I'm going to tell you a little story. So a few years ago, it was peak of COVID. I was living in Calgary, Alberta. We were in a lockdown. My wife had quit her full-time job, which made pretty good money. And I was trying to run my own business, and I was not making very good money. And so she went back to school, and she was retraining as an X-ray technologist she was a geologist working like oil and gas. Now she's a student. I'm at home. We have 2 kids. They're both at home because it's COVID. And we had this moment of like, what are we doing? Like, we have almost no income, and we knew we wanted to move. Right now I live in Regina, Saskatchewan. And we knew we were moving here. Like, it was something we'd talked about, we'd been planning for. We knew we were moving. It was that like the future was already present. We're like, we know we're moving. Like, so everything we did was based around, we need to move. We're going to be moving. But then COVID happened. And then we're like, okay, well, at first it was that like, well, we can't move. We can't buy a house. It's COVID. Like, we can't travel to go look at houses. We can't, do this. We can't do that. We can't, like, there was a lot of like, we can'ts. And then I stopped and I said to my wife, like, it's all going to work out. I'm like, everything's always working out for us. Everything is working out. I know we can't see it now, but everything is working out. And she's like, okay, Jessica, whatever. And so I'm like, I know it. I know this is working out. And she's like, okay. So she's in school. I'm at home with the kids. I'm trying to run my business. We're like, not sure what to do. And I said, I know that we're moving, so we should get in touch with a realtor in Regina and get her to start sending us listings. And so my wife, bless her soul, is just like, whatever you want, honey. Like, she thinks I'm out to lunch, but she's like, yeah, do that. So the realist, I email, because we had talked to an agent here before, and I email her and I say, can you start sending us listings? This is the neighborhood we want. We had a conversation about it, my wife and I, and she said that it's that area or nowhere. Like, I only want this neighborhood. And I'm like, okay. This is the only neighborhood we want to see listings for. Like, don't even waste our time outside of this, like, tiny little spot. Yeah. And she's like, okay. And there was, like, a few different houses were coming on the market, but they were, like, over our budget. They were, like, we wanted a bungalow. There were no bungalows. Like, it wasn't happening. And then there was nothing. For, like, 6 months, there was nothing came on the market. And so we were starting to go back to that place of, like, oh, maybe we're not going to move. Maybe this isn't going to happen. But we knew at the end of the day, we're going to end up there. Maybe it'll take longer than we thought. Like, let's just like hold it lightly and it'll come. And then this listing came. I was working in my basement and I call it a bing bong. I got a bing bong on my phone and I'm like, oh my God, there's a listing. It's a bungalow. It's in our neighborhood. It's in the price point we had talked about. And I'm like looking at the pictures and I'm like, I think this is the house. Like, I felt it. Like, in my soul, I was like, this is the house. And so my wife, who was doing school upstairs in the house because it was COVID, I like go up the stairs and I was like, did you get this email from the realtor? She's like, and she turns and she looks at me. She's like, I think that's the house. I'm like, yeah,
my God.
I think it's the house too. So we emailed the realtor. The realtor like gets back to us right away. Long story long, she's like, they're doing like 15-minute showings. Like, it's going to go to like multiple bids. It's going to be this crazy thing. And I'm like, I don't care. I need you to go. I need you to take the contractor. Like, we can't go. We didn't even go see the house. She like went and did like a FaceTime tour of the house with us. We put in an offer for the house below ask. And she's like, I don't know, like, it's going to go to multiple bids. I'm like, well, look, we'll rebid then or whatever. And so the Sunday, this is like on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday goes by. Sunday, the realtor calls us and she's like, you got the house. And I'm like, what? She's like, you were the only offer. They showed it to 70. There were 70 showings. And you were the only offer. We got it under ask. No one else bid.
I got goosebumps. That's crazy.
And it was just like, I really believe it's because like there were all these things that told us this isn't going to work out for you. You're like, it's COVID. You can't go see the house. You don't have any money. You know, like all these things. But it all worked out. And again, like looking back, I can see all the pieces. Like, we weren't meant to get those earlier houses. This house was supposed to be our house. And that's where I'm doing this interview from, is that house. Like, we got the house, we renovated the house, we're in the house. Like, so really, like, when there's a challenge that comes up that you're like, this isn't what I planned, you have to really hold faith that, like, everything is working out for me. There's a reason this happened. And in this moment, it sucks. And in this moment, I hate it. And it feels hard and it feels impossible and it feels like my dreams are being taken from me. But the truth is, this happened for a reason, and something else will happen because this crappy thing happened.
Yes, it's preparing you or guiding you towards where you're meant to be. And I totally believe that. And I think even if the people that don't believe that, I really highly recommend you fake believe it until you actually believe that. Because it's a good thing to believe, to kind of keep you going too. You know, initially, if bad things kept on happening to you, it's kind of hard to believe that everything's going to work out. You know, once things start working out for you, it's easy to say, it's going to be fine. It's going to work out for me. Like, things always work out for me. I'm a pretty lucky person. So it gets easier to say that as, you know, you get there. But initially, I feel like the people listening, if you feel like something's not working out for you, just even if you don't believe it, just know that there's something that is happening for the, you know, greater reason in the future.
Yeah. And something that I started doing when I first started doing this mindset work, and I was one of those people that I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, it all worked out for you in that one time. But like, there were a lot of other things leading up to that did not go our way. That like, we wanted to move here like 4 years earlier. Like, we were delayed. I'm not trying to say everything just worked out. Like, there were delays. But something that we started doing was, when something wasn't working out and it felt hard, instead of going like, oh, this is hard and this is bad and this happened, and like, it's very easy to go down that path where you just start listing all the reasons why things aren't working out for you.
You start doubting it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you start doubting. We started to pause and go, this is good. And so like something bad would happen and we'd be like, this is good. And it forces you to go, why is this good? Like, okay, this is good. You know, COVID happened. This is good. Yeah, this is good. We're all home together. Like, it actually worked out really nice. I was able to do my work. My wife was home. We switched off like mornings and afternoons. Who had to watch the kids. Like, it worked out. Like, it was good. Was it the way I planned it? No.
Yeah, I love it. It's just like, force yourself for your auto reply to be, this is good.
This is good. And then you're like, think of a reason it's good.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people are gonna get a lot of takeaways from that advice, because the hardest times I feel like we have that gets in our own way is when we start doubting. But if we have kind of a tool and a reason to not doubt, we're going to be more likely to be successful.
Yes. Yeah. The easy way is to doubt yourself. That's the easy path. Everyone takes that path. It's well worn. The hard way is to go, this is working out for me, and to believe that. And you know why there's so few successful people, so few millionaires in the world? Because that's not the easy path. They didn't get lucky. They didn't just have the right things at the right time. They took a different path, and more often than not, they had to change their belief system about like what's hard and what's not hard.
It's simple, but it's not easy. I think that's the takeaway that anything in life, honestly, that's simple, it's really not easy. And I have an example. It's with the kids, we've been having on and off issues with sleep training from baby stage to toddler stage. It's simple. Like the concepts, a lot of times it's so simple. Like if it's let them cry it out, or, like do the check-in thing. It's so simple. Like I should be able to do that. But as a parent, it's so hard for me to hear my kid cry and not run to them, even though I know it's for their good, for example. I think that's one main thing I've learned, that anything with the mindset work too, it's so simple where you're like, it can't be true, but it's hard. So don't get fooled for the concept to be so simple. We really have to practice it on the day-to-day for it to actually get easy. So as being an entrepreneur, what's the best part for you and what's the worst part?
The best part is showing my kids that you can literally do anything. Like you can do whatever you want to do, and they get to see like one parent leaves the house, works and has a boss and like has the like typical work experience, and then one parent is at home and like tonight I was saying to them, I'm doing this interview for a podcast, and they're like have no concept what that is, but like it's different from what their other parent does, right? So it's like they have two examples of what you can do, and
it opens their possibilities and their options. I love that.
Yeah, so that's for sure the best part. The like worst part is probably the like beliefs of other people trying to like infiltrate into my mind, right? I mean, anyone who owns a business has at least heard one time, if not hundreds of times, like, oh, it's so hard to be an entrepreneur. It's so hard to be a business owner. It's so hard. And it's like, you have to constantly do this work. Like when people say that to me in my mind, I'm like, reject, reject, reject. Like,
yeah,
I don't want that to like come into my brain. Yeah.
Yes, it's tough, especially if you're like a person who feels energy and everything too. It's hard to get to a place where you can block off other people's thoughts and energy and negative thinking. So for me, honestly, it's been tough throughout the years as new people come and go from my life to be able to be like, okay, no, this is the type of person, although I want to see the best in them, I can't have them around me all the time because they're having this effect on me.
Yes. I have some people in my life that as I started down this path with operations management, like initially they're kind of like, oh, well, that's like a cute job. Like they didn't take it seriously. And so I had to make a conscious decision to just create more space between me and those people. And now that I'm confident in what I'm doing in my business, I can close that gap a little bit more. But like, to me, that's the worst part of being an entrepreneur, is like, that's kind of what makes it isolating, is like, you don't really feel like safe sharing your goals with people because they're going to say your goals are too big or they're not realistic or they're whatever. And then you're like, okay, well, I can't share that with you. And you kind of like have to cut people off in certain ways, like not entirely, but like in certain ways.
It's just a different level of, like, I think it's a mentality, honestly. It's just a different level of mentality where if you're not at that same kind of level, it's hard for people to understand you. So then it just doesn't work. I mean, I can't even explain it, but I totally understand.
Yeah, I call it a frequency. It's like on a radio, right? Like I'm like at 97.2 and they're like 99.3. And so like we're both on the radio, but like we're different frequencies. So it's just like not aligning. And so it's like, okay.
Yeah. One question, and I know it's really tough for a lot of people who want to start, because there's a lot of people who have great ideas, but that initial leap of starting is the challenges they face, or like the initial, I guess, maybe doubts they have, or initial like unknowns they have. So for you, what was your biggest challenge in getting started and how did you resolve that?
For me, I really started to feel like I let down my family. Like I went from having a job at a bank, it was like 9 to 5, I knew my salary, I had benefits, I had like a pension, I had like, it was great on paper. But I say, I'm like, my soul was dying there and I couldn't stay there. And so when I decided to leave, I had a really hard time with that belief that like I've let my family down, and if I am not successful in this, then I've made a huge mistake. And that was a lot of my like inner talk for a long time. And so that's kind of part of what helped me be successful was like, quitters never win and winners never quit. So like I can't quit because I need to be successful. Like I cannot quit. And so that was kind of something that like catapulted me forward. But then also, even like now that I'm successful, I still have moments of doubt where like I'll start crying to my wife, like, what if I have no clients next month? Like, it's not a real thing. And
we all go through it. We just have to remind ourselves of what we talked about, that no, everything's gonna be fine.
Yes. And like, it's that doubt. Like, it takes inner fortitude to like fight that inner voice, because we feed it so much in our culture. I find our society is very focused on how things are hard and the danger. And a coach I had once had kind of said, like, what is the worst possible thing that could happen? Like, really write down like all your fears about this decision. What is the worst thing that could happen? And lots of times for entrepreneurs, it boils down to like, and then I'll be homeless. Like, this will happen, and then I'll be homeless. And it's like, okay, but like a lot of things need to happen from today to homeless. Like, it's not impossible, but like, it's not, like, there's a lot that needs to happen.
Yeah, you can stop at a certain level, just...
right? So it's like, okay, it's a nice, like, check-in to be like, okay, the worst thing that could happen that I'm afraid of, the odds of it actually happening are, like, so small. They're smaller than the odds of me being successful. So it changes how you think about it.
I know. Sometimes we need somebody to put things in perspective, because we don't even know when we're not thinking correctly. We need that person to snap us out of it.
Yeah.
So now going back to your program, I know you cover like the reasons why people's revenue goals feel unrealistic or unreachable. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's a lot of kind of what we've been talking about. Like, if you're only focused on that, like, I want to make $800,000 this year, like, that's a lot. Like, if that's 8 times more than what you've ever made, and that's your only goal, like, when someone's like, what are your goals? And you're like, I'm going to make $800,000 this year. You cannot tell me that you're not scared of that number, right? Like, that's so big to just think about only the number. Like, you can be excited about it, and you can like journal about all the things you're going to do when you hit the goal, and like you can visualize it, and you can be like, I'm manifesting it. That's great. But at the end of the day, I don't know a single person that isn't a little bit scared. Like, what if I don't hit the number? What if I can't get to $800,000? And so the thing that holds you back from that is only having that number. It's like, it goes back to those goals that I was talking about, the 6 supporting
and your
goals.
game we talked about.
Yeah, so it's like, then you can break it down to these smaller goals. Like, okay, don't worry about the $800,000 and how you're going to get there, because the how is none of your business. Like, the $800,000 is there. How it gets to you is irrelevant. So now you need to focus on these other things. Like, what's the impact you want to have? Like, what's your goal for the time that you want to work and the amount of effort and energy you want to put into this business? What are the goals for like the products you want to create? Those things are more tangible, that you can like feel them, touch them, see them every day. And it's easier to focus in on those. And then all of those things will get you to $800,000.
Do you ever get a situation when you're doing these goal settings and somebody really like says, oh no, I don't want to do that to get to that number. I don't want it.
You know what? Yes and no. Like, people change the goal. They'll realize like, okay, no, this goal isn't realistic for where I am today and what I'm able and willing to do in the next 12 months. Like,
yeah, the willing part.
And it becomes about like able and willing. Like, are you willing to, hedge your bets and hire 5 people? If you're not willing to do that, then we need to change the goal, because you can't get there without these 5 people on a team, or whatever the case may be. So sometimes it tweaks what the goal is. But usually what it does is it makes them excited to add the members to their team or to create the new product. Like, it gives them something that they're like, holy shit, if I do these things, then I can get there. Like, it becomes more possible. Usually that's what happens. It becomes more possible.
Here's another question, because you've mentioned adding people to the team quite a few times. Do you find that that's a common thing small businesses do wrong in the beginning? They're afraid to hire on because of, the budget and all that?
Yeah. How will I pay them? That's like, right? Like, that's kind of the thing that stands in the way of hiring. And I'm trying to think of a time when someone did not need to hire, and I cannot think of one. Like, you need, it goes back
manpower.
Well, you need the manpower, and it goes back to, like, zone of genius. Like, if you're not good at operations, then you need to hire someone who is. If you're not good at marketing, then hire someone who is. And, like, I'm not saying this as a blanket statement. Don't go out and just, like, hire people willy-nilly. But, like, if you do the money game and you set some goals that align and that support that, very often the first step is hiring someone in some capacity. Sometimes it's like 2 hours a week. Sometimes it's 5 hours a week. Sometimes it's a full-time position.
We all can use the help.
Right? And it's just like, because at the end of the day, we can't do this by ourselves. Like, if you look at any major company, corporation, it started with one person, and today it's hundreds of thousands of people. Like, you can't just continue as one person. It takes a lot of people to build a really successful business. And sometimes it takes like 5 really amazing employees, but sometimes it takes like 100 part-time employees. Like, it just really depends on your business and your goals and what you're trying to do.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's great for people to kind of start even questioning, like, oh, do I need to hire? Do I need to consider, do I need to consider the help that I need, and can I benefit from that in the long run?
I would say too, with people that are thinking, should I hire? Before you hire anyone, this is my caveat, my little disclaimer statement. Before you hire someone, you need to have your processes documented. You need systems. Because if you hire someone and everything lives in your head, you're going to end up firing them. Because you're going to be like, they don't know what to do. They did this wrong. Whatever. Yeah, they cannot read your mind. And the best thing you can do as a business owner is document every single thing you do. So anything that's a repeatable task should have a written process. Like, you go into this email, you go here, you click on this thing. When this happens, you do this. Like, really spell it out, because when you hire someone, then you say to them, here's what you need to do. And you digitally hand them a thing or physically hand them a thing that says, do these things.
Yes, and I'll share a story that aligns really well with that, actually. Back in 2019, this was before COVID, I really wanted to do like a US tour. So we bought an RV, and I was like, I'm going to find a way to do it. I still need to work. I enjoy my work, but I'm going to find a way to have my business be running physically in the location it was in. And I'm going to go all around in the RV, and my boyfriend at that time, who's my husband now, and we're going to go do this. We're going to market the business across country, but we're also going to have fun. Like, I'm going to find a way to get, best of both worlds. So that's when it actually hit me that, whoa, like how, because and sometimes I was on, not on this tour, but just overall, if I'm on even a different time zone and they can't get a hold of me, or if I'm offline, how are they going to know what to do? Is my business going to crash? Because I was used to everybody calling me every second. Hey, this happened with this client. What do I do? What do I do? And that's honestly when I was like, okay, I need systems in place. And literally we started creating like how-tos for everything. So I have like a how-to, literally everything that was involved in the business back then. And that's, I think, what saved me being able to kind of not work as much and not feel so stressed that my phone's going to ring every second for people to ask for help. Because I had some systems in place, and, it would be great to have somebody help me fine tune those and do all of that. But I guess I didn't think of it that way. I did it mainly because I felt like I couldn't be physically at my business, so I needed something. But it will definitely benefit so much if you still are physically at your business, but there is written instructions for everything.
Yeah. Like, even for me, I have like a process for how we onboard clients. So then when I first hired my VA, I was like, can you test this? Like, I've documented how I onboard a client. Can you onboard a client using this? And it was a test. And then she was like, oh, wait, how did you get here? I'm like, okay, there's a gap in the directions, right?
Oh,
like,
I love that.
So that's kind of how you, when you first hire, that's how you kind of have to go into it. Like, have a framework. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't like bend over backwards trying to get every minute detail, but like get the basics. And then when you hire that person, know that they will have questions, but every question they have refines that process. So then the next time they go to do it, it's clear. And then the next person you hire, they can do it. And it stays the same.
I love it. Thank you so much again. It's so nice talking to you, and I have so many questions, but we are running out of time. We actually went over time, but let me ask you your last question. And I doubt you would do anything different, but if you can go back when you were starting your business and do it all over again, would you do anything different, or what would you do different?
I don't know that I would do anything differently, because if I hadn't done it as I did, I wouldn't be here. So even the mistakes that I made, the like literally tens of thousands of dollars I spent on the wrong things, all of those things actually I use all the time. I listened to a different podcast. I can't remember which one because I listen to a lot, but the person on that podcast said, like, if you take only 5% of anything that you invest in and are able to apply it in the future, then it wasn't a waste. And so that was kind of like a big moment for me where I was like, yeah, like there's some courses I've invested in or like coaches I've invested in where I'm like, well, I don't really use that now. Like, was that a waste? But I learned a lot from those and I apply them in my day-to-day. So they were not a waste. They were an investment. So I don't know that I would really redo anything. If I could change one thing, it would be I would want to have the mindset that I have now. If I could have had that like 5 years ago, that would have been really great.
Work on it sooner. Yeah, work on your mindset sooner. I love that. All right. Well, any closing thoughts for our listeners and last words of advice?
Wow, we covered so much in this hour. I'm so excited. I think my closing thoughts are really, you cannot underestimate the value of what is in your mind, like your mindset, but also like the things that you do every day that you don't even realize you're doing. And that's where like documenting your processes and your systems is something that I recommend to every single business owner when you start out. Every time you sit down at your desk and you're going to do something, document what you're doing, because you will realize like, wow, A, I do a lot in a day, and B, I could hire someone. They would be able to do this. Like, so it really shifts your whole mindset around documenting, because like most entrepreneurs didn't get started to sit at their computer and document the processes. Like, I'm not going to lie, it's not fun. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting, but it's important. And so making the time for that.
Well, thank you so much again. That's unique advice I haven't heard on the podcast. So thank you for that again. And it was so nice to talk to you and to meet you. If you can, please share where people can find you. And obviously we'll also link all your information so it could be easy. But please, for just our listeners who are maybe driving, let them know how they can find you.
Yeah, so you can head over to my website, which is Jessica Pegg with PEGG.com/moneygame to access the exact worksheet that I complete with my clients. And that money game will really get you thinking about how you need to change your business to support the growth that you want. As a bonus, if you send it to jessica@jessicapegg.com, which is my personal email, I will do a personalized one-on-one call with you where I can help you get clear on the top 3 goals for your business so you actually reach your revenue objective. So the link will be in the show notes, but it's jessicapegg.com/moneygame. And if you're not ready for this, but you want to get your systems in place so you can hire your first like VA, or you want to automate your client onboarding process, you can send me a message on Instagram at jessicapegg.coo that says VIP day, and I'll get you information on what action you can take next.
Wow, I love that. Thank you so much again. Thank you for your time, and best of luck to you in everything you do in your mission of empowering more and more women.
Thank you so much. It was really amazing to be here. What a great conversation.
Thank you for listening. Please rate and review this podcast. Follow and engage with us on social media under the Yegi Project. And if you're interested in being a guest, email info@theyegiproject.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.